What's up, guys? So we have a pretty interesting one today, and I think we'll make this a sole video, honestly. So long story short, we are, let me get into it. So this is Kirk over at Boost Lab. We are at Boost Lab right now. We have a couple of the turbos that we have been working on. This one is off of the Gixxer 1000. That's in the shop, the 05. And this one's gonna be on the LSR bike. I know you guys have been asking for updates on that bike. Well, here we are. The motor's been built, and we are waiting on the motor and the max ECU, and right now we need to squeeze as much power as we can out of this. Not little, I guess it's pretty little comparative to the size that we want, but this little turbo. So this is the LSR turbo on the ZX14R, and then again, this is the Gixxer 1000 one. So we're gonna go over both these turbos today and kind of explain a little bit, well, Kirk is gonna explain a little bit as far as what we're gonna do to each one of these turbos. Okay, we're gonna start with this one because there's some damage on this one. So Kirk, all right, so what's going on with this turbo?
All right, this turbocharger here, right away, just from feeling it, has in and out play. I don't know if you can catch that on video there. You can kind of see it.
We can kind of hear it.
There you go.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
That means the thrust bearing is worn. So at some point, something in the oil got in there and rubbed the thrust bearing down.
Okay, so and on any turbo, he was explaining earlier, on any turbocharger, it doesn't matter if it's ball bearing, dual ball bearing, journal bearing, it needs to have zero in and out play.
Yeah, zero in and out play. I mean, that just shows you that there's damage done to the thrust bearing. You're gonna have some up and down play with journal bearing turbochargers, especially because you're gonna have space for the oil between the bearing housing, bearing, and the shaft.
Right. Okay.
So that's what you're feeling when the turbocharger's sitting. You feel it up and down. That's about normal right there. That's probably exaggerated on the but that's okay, but this is not okay right here. Then and out, not okay.
All right, so we have this main, and what causes that? Just time or
I mean,
a bunch of different
variables. I mean, you have either overspin of the turbocharger, meaning you blow a coupler off, you keep riding it. It's going to spin it faster than it's designed to go.
Oh, okay.
It'll wear down thrust bearing. Or if you have foreign material in the oil, which is kind of natural on
bikes. Yeah. So obviously, guys, we share oil with the transmission, the clutch, now, you know, obviously the turbo. And this one did have an electronic scavenge pump, and then he went to a mechanical, so who knows what else those lines, you know, it picks up debris, crap all the time. So interesting. Okay.
Yeah, turbocharger typically is the weakest link in the oiling system when, you know, on a bike.
Yeah, on a bike. So, and then we also, all right, so we also pointed out the drain. This is another biggie, and to be honest with you, I didn't even really notice it out the gate. That was something that I was gonna, you know, again, as we were going through and we were gonna put the new lines on, something that we needed to address regardless, because this is a barb fitting, and quite honestly, I don't really like using the barb fittings. I personally like using all AN fittings. So what is it about this particular fitting, or the size of this fitting, I should say, that is an issue?
So actually, we can probably take it off and show you.
Okay.
I see a couple things here. Silicone.
Silicone all in there. Yep. Gooped all in there.
Yep.
There it is.
So
yep.
The biggest thing is you want to match the actual inner diameter of your flange or fitting to that of the bearing housing itself. So I'm sure if we take this off right now, you'll see it.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah. Right away. Look at the difference right there.
Yeah, so we have a much larger hole on the actual bearing housing versus the actual drain flange itself.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're starting off with a restriction.
Oh my God, look at that. Jesus. Yeah, this was horrible. So what we're gonna do with this one, rebuild.
Definitely needs at least a standard rebuild.
Okay. So we're gonna do a rebuild on this one, along with a
definitely
a little bit better of a flange. So we're gonna change this out, obviously, to a much better. God, that is wild. That's crazy, dude. That's really small. Yeah, this almost looks like a feed line. Yep. Yeah, it'll definitely cost. So in this one, we had oil literally spraying out of the exhaust, like just puking out of the exhaust housing, along with obviously the compressor housing. You could see it puddled up, and I never showed this, but we had oil pooling up. All right, it might have all drained out, but you could see.
You can see right there.
Yeah, on the housing itself, you guys can see a little bit of the oil kind of gooped up there on the housing. there was oil all inside of here, but we did kind of drain this off the last 2 days. It's been draining, so.
I mean, essentially when you have a blockage like this, or not really a blockage, restriction, you're using a turbocharger as a drain essentially, because at some point it's going to fill up and the oil has to go somewhere.
Right.
So it takes a path of least resistance, which is going to be the piston rings.
Yeah, the seals.
Yeah.
Get it right. So, yeah. Oh, that's another thing we could talk about too, if you want. So, okay, so a lot of times guys call it the seals. I blew my seals, right? You'll hear that a lot in the turbo world. And Kirk was teaching me a little bit about there's no real seal. It's not a seal. There's nothing to blow.
It's not really a seal. It's a piston ring like you would have in a motor. I want to grab one real quick. Yeah.
So he's going to show us basically what it looks like, and it's the way he described it is perfect. It looks like a little miniature piston ring, and that's what seals, quote unquote, the system from leaking oil everywhere. Yeah, just like that little wedding ring. He went to Garrett. So basically that's what seals the system, and the thrust bearing keeps it from moving side to side.
Yes. Or so, yeah, in and out.
Or thrust washer, thrust bearing.
Thrust bearing keeps it from going in and out.
Okay. Thrust bearing, yep, keeps it from going in and out. So that's our Gixxer 1000 turbo. So we're gonna get that one. These guys are gonna take care of it. We're gonna get that all fixed for the guy and for the customer and come out. He did say I don't want any issues with this turbo. So we're gonna make sure it's good.
Yep.
And so that's that turbo. So the next turbo we have here is a Turbonetics turbo that Kirk was telling us clearly. And the goal is trying to maximize the power out of the size of this turbo right now. So I didn't really tell you this off camera, but he wants, well, our starting goal, and you tell me, we haven't talked about this yet, guys, but you tell me if this is a far cry or not, if he's gonna hit it, but we want to hit around 4 to 450 to start with.
Okay, I would say it's doable. Man, right now we don't know the size of the turbocharger yet.
Okay, you need
so
to
we need to determine the size, but from looking at it right now, this looks like a GT30 sized turbine wheel.
Okay.
I would say it's be a guessing man. I'd say probably 55 millimeter turbine wheel.
Okay.
Which is good for that.
And that's about a normal, like that's what we hear about a lot in our world.
It's good for that. This guy here, I don't know what size that is. So you have to take the cover off, measure it out, and see what options we have here, and see we can identify the turbocharger.
So this is what, a 10 or 11 blade? What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I can't count that high.
Yeah, I think it's 11. So this is an 11 blade compressor wheel. Okay, so here I always wanted to talk about this too, because we had our buddy at Magnum. So he told us, we were educated back in the day, or we were told back in the day, I should say, that we had a 10 blade made for a Gixxer 1000 bike. Yeah. And what we were told was that so can we show them like a 7x7 or whatever versus
a 7 blade right here?
All right, so this is a 7 blade. All right, so if you notice, we have 7 blades on the front, on the top part, and then we have another 7.
So your leading blade and then a trailing blade.
Okay, leading and trailing. So what's the benefit of this versus this, or what are the differences, I should say, between the two?
I would say something with a high blade count like this, you can kind of keep it from overspinning the turbocharger, because naturally you have to remember it's grabbing more air. It's going to cost more resistance.
Okay. So this pulls in more air.
I mean, at a lower RPM, it'll pull more air than something like this.
Okay.
But this will spool a higher RPM because it has less resistance.
Okay.
As opposed to 10 blades.
So this will make more power down low.
Yes.
This is more like a street style turbo that you would say.
Yes.
Okay. Or a wheel, I should say, a street style wheel versus that.
Yes.
Okay. So what do they call that wheel versus the 11 blade? Like, what do they call the just
7+7?
Oh, it's 7+7. Okay, 7+7, and then the 11
plus 0.
11 plus 0. Okay. So I mean, yeah, no, I that's why I wanted to come. I wanted to learn some stuff too. But okay, so what do you feel about this wheel though? Does that to me that feels like it's getting caught up or some shit?
Well, let's see. There's a little bit of side-to-side play here. There's no in and out play on this turbocharger. There's a lot of rust. I can hear rust.
Yeah, there's rust like crazy on this. Yeah. So is there any way to change this to a stainless housing while still retaining, you know, again, this overall framing?
don't know.
Okay.
Because I have to identify this turbocharger first before we can see what options there are.
Okay.
Because I mean, this is, I would imagine, this is probably just a continued turbocharger.
I have no idea, like, when he got it made. I know it's been a minute, because like I said, this was originally a street bike, and then over the last even just year and a half or so that we've been dealing with him, or about a year now, he's gone from, he wanted a fun little street bike to, he started going to the half-mile events. And after his first couple, he was like, yeah, no, man, I gotta get way more than this. So that's been this little journey, if you will. So he doesn't necessarily, because he's spent so much money at this point, that's why he's like, hey, look, I already know I need to go with a bigger turbo, but with that, I know I need to make all the other changes. The whole kit needs to change. So that's kind of what he's trying to avoid just for right now with the new motor and everything. He's like, I just want to maximize what we have. Can we do that? So that's kind of why we're here with this one.
Yeah, biggest thing to do is take the cover off, measure it out, see what wheel size that is, see what it's rated at, identify what we're working with to begin with, and then make a decision based on that. Okay.
So that's the game plan for this. So we're gonna see. You know, we don't know for sure, but we're gonna see. I mean, bare minimum, we're gonna, you know, we'll get it cleaned up, you know, bare minimum, but we'll see. You know, again, I trust these guys. So a little backstory, we actually used to have a shop right across the street, quite literally, right? Yeah, we were literally neighbors. What?
How long ago was that? 10 years ago.
Fuck. We're getting old. Yeah, no, it was older than that. It was back in 09.
Yeah, that's holy shit. Yeah.
15 years ago. 15 years ago.
That's how old we are.
This is reality right here for you. So anyway, we were neighbors about 15 years ago when he moved in, and they are crushing it right now. So we've known Kirk for a while. He's always been good to us. So we love to utilize him, honestly. Very knowledgeable, as you can see. So we're gonna definitely put our trust, our faith in their hands. So his whole crew, they're really good guys, and yeah. So
one thing to keep in mind also, if you have too big of a drain, in this sense, with a scavenge pump, you can cavitate.
Cavitate. Okay.
So you want, in this sense, you want like a restricted drain to kind of keep things flowing. Okay. You know. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So so it's only really when you're seeing the smoke.
Yeah. If you're seeing smoke, the turbo's getting too much oil.
What about if oil's coming out, like out of a compressor or exhaust housing? Like
that means the turbo's filling up with oil.
So it's still not draining.
Oil's never meant to fill up the turbocharger with oil.
Right, it's supposed to flow through, correct?
Yeah, it's supposed to flow through.
Okay.
In and out. So it's coming in pressurized, coming out, relying on gravity, in your case, a scavenge pump.
Yes.
So as long as the scavenge pump is not cavitating and pulling in air, it should keep things flowing properly. I see. Okay, so you want the system to be more or less kind of like a cooling system. Yeah. You just want it to be filled up and flowing correctly. Well, you don't want this filled up. Like, the bearing housing, you have to remember you have a piston ring up here.
I'm thinking about the lines, all the lines and everything. The lines. Yeah, my bad. Yes. Yeah, I'm thinking about all the lines. You want the lines filled up and flowing, but not the center cartridge.
Exactly. Which is a fine balance, you know. Yeah. It kind of tells you when it's crying and, you know, it's puking oil on both sides. Like, hey, I'm not happy here.
So another thing that just hit my mind, actually, we'll continue on with that. So journal bearing versus ball bearing. Yeah. So on the journal bearing, with the feed line. Okay. I think we talked about this last time. So with a journal bearing, what would be your recommendation on like a frame, on a center cartridge such as these? What kind of feed would you recommend on a journal bearing? Would it be the -4? Would it be a -3?
Well, I mean, you have to remember, like, let's dummy it down a little bit. Let's figure out how the turbocharger is utilizing the oil. A journal bearing turbocharger needs oil pressure, sufficient oil pressure. Typically, you know, it's under load. You want to be at least like 40 psi to be happy. Okay. Anything below that. So essentially, you have to remember, it's kind of like an air hockey table. You know what I mean? So the air's off, the puck doesn't move, right? That's no oil pressure. Okay. I'm with hockey you. On, and now it floats. That's air pressure. Okay. So essentially, why a turbocharger, especially a journal bearing, why it moves more freely with oil pressure inside of it, because now everything's floating. Oh, I see. It's not. The bearing floats. The shaft floats. So, ball bearing turbochargers utilize the oil in a very different way. They don't need oil pressure. Okay. It's kind of like skateboard bearing, or, you know, roller skates or whatever. It'll spin freely. You know,
Yeah, it'll move.
It'll spin freely.
Yeah, okay.
But it creates a lot of heat. So you're using the oil to cool things
Just to
down.
cool it down.
Because these bearings generate heat.
Okay.
So that's why
that's the biggie.
Most ball bearing turbochargers have water or coolant and oil going to it because they generate more heat than a drum bearing turbocharger.
I always wondered why they started that. I thought it was just for like just the durability sake, you know, like just in general, like, hey, we learned, you know, like, add more coolant. I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah, it's to keep things cool. It's it's really just using the oil to keep things cool, and that's about it. There's nothing floating inside of there. There's just nothing happening other than just keeping things cool.
Keeping it cool. Okay.
That's why typically you have a restrictor.
Yes.
And most of these will be self-restricted anyways.
Okay.
So.
Oh, really? Like built into the center cartridge now, or into the bearing?
Yeah. Let's say a Garrett GT ball bearing turbocharger. This is a journal bearing, obviously, but same design as far as the bearing housing goes.
Okay.
It'll have a pin. The oil goes through the top right here. This is placed inside the oil feed. You can kind of see the...
Oh shit, yeah, that like restricts it already.
Yep.
So you see that little pin in there? That restricts it. That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah, this is going to be found like on a Garrett GT 28, 30, and 35R.
Okay, okay.
The same pin internally. People don't never see this because it's pressed in, but...
Yeah, right, yeah, I mean, you'll never. Yeah,
that's why typically you kind of get rid of the regular dash 3 or dash 4 because the turbo's doing the restricted for you.
Okay, I see. I get it. Yeah, because that was another issue that I had. I ran a dash 3 on one of them. I think it was my turbo. I ran a dash 3 with no restrictor, and it was. I was having the leaking. It was coming out of the exhaust, I think, or I don't remember now.
Well, typically if it's leaking, then or if it's smoking, that's when you can make your decision based on that. You don't want to reduce it just for the sake of reducing it, and then you can kill the turbocharger.
Okay, I see.
If it's smoking, there's an issue. Restrict it. Start off the largest restrictor you can. Work your way down till the turbo's happy, and you're good to go.
Okay. All right. Dope. So there you go, man. That right there is huge advice. Like from my experiences, what I dealt with, especially on motorcycles, that's huge. Like honestly, that's big advice for me, even because it's like that's questions that I have. Because even other people that I've spoken to, they're like, no, you don't need to run this, you need to run that. And I'm like, well, but why do I need to run this on this turbo? Because then there'd be another turbo bike that'd come in, I would run that same setup.
No, two setups are the same.
Yeah, and it was like, I didn't like it, and I'm like, what the hell? You know, and I was like, I was told to run this, but I was never told why.
Yes.
So that's the biggie.
Once you understand, you can make your decision based on that.
Right, it's understanding how it works. So, all right, dope, man. Well, I'll leave you guys alone. But anyway, guys, I really hope you gained a lot of knowledge on this. He said that they'll shoot us some video of the rebuild process and stuff. They'll shoot some of the rebuilding kind of time lapse or something, you know.
Yeah.
We'll get something, but we'll update you guys soon also on both of the turbos. And I know they're both looking forward to it. So we'll give you guys an update later on. You got anything else, Kurt?
Nope.
No?
Good.
All right, cool, man. All right, guys. Well,
subscribe now.